everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because a dance experience is an experience worth talking about. Today, we are continuing with episode 1. Starting it off of Defining Dance Ed, a new series where I'll be talking to educators who are coming from different parts of the field, some who are working in studios, conservatories, higher education, and those who have experience with K-12. So today, I'm starting off with my special guest, Miss Marie McNair.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Most welcome. Happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah. So before we jump into everything, I want to start off with our quote for the day. This is another one from one of my favorite writers, C.S. Lewis, and he says, "The trouble about trying to make yourself stupider than you really are is that you very often succeed."
That's a good quote.
I love that one. That's one of my
It reminds me
favorite.
of like with my kids when I say, when you guys are trying so hard not to look stupid because you think doing a move full out will make you look stupid,
Yes.
you end up looking weirder and more awkward.
Yes, you do.
So it ends up just defeating the purpose.
You just make it worse.
Right. I'm like, you might as well just go for it, because that actually looks better than you not trying to go for it.
Exactly. Like, that's why I love that one. It's like when you try to make yourself look even stupider.
Right. Yeah.
You do.
Right.
It's like, nobody really wants that.
Nobody
for
wants
themselves.
that. Happy MLK Day.
Yes. Thank you. By the time you all get this, it will be a little bit after, but we are using our MLK Day to start bringing you content.
Yeah. I think it's very, very poignant. A good day to start this.
It is, and I'm very excited because I know I'm also going to have you back a little later.
Let's get my life together.
All right, so first, I want you to share a little bit of background information about yourself with my audience, just your journey as a dancer and a dance educator from the beginning to now.
Well, first, again, my name is Marie McNair, born and raised in Washington, D.C. I think one of the first memories that I had of myself like falling in love with dance was when my mom bought me Alvin Ailey's Revelations on VHS, and I would play it all day, every day. And my mom had a little a fan, a little woven fan, and a yellow blanket, and I would go back in the basement with the fan and the blanket, and I would try to do the part where they're doing this fan case. I would just follow along, and I fell in love with Revelations, especially Wade in the Water, Fix Me Jesus, all of them. But those were like, just amazing. And she also bought me a lot of VHSs of Dance Theater of Harlem. It's things that people don't actually like, aren't his most famous works. One about John Henry, and another one about Giselle. But it was Giselle right after the Civil War, so it was set in that period where African Americans were kind of really, had joined were becoming members of Congress, and they were kind of setting up their own communities, and it was Creole Giselle. That was what it was called. And so I again fell in love with Virginia Johnson. It was just beautiful, and I think I always attribute my mother and thank her for that, because she created something in which, for me, seeing Black people in that image was normal, right? And not the... So that kind of started my love for dance, and then I joined the B. Davis Dance Center in Washington, D.C. on Georgia Avenue. So I started out learning Cicchetti, ballet, tap, a little bit of hip-hop, and modern. And I reached a certain point at the school where I was around the age of 11 or 12 where I had outgrown it. I was more dedicated to ballet, and there just wasn't enough there to provide me with the challenging kind of technique training that I needed to pursue what I wanted to pursue, and I had been one of the strongest dancers there for a while, and so I made a very hard decision, which can be an entire topic for another day. The reason why I left, there's drama behind that. The short story of it is, on top of being the best one there, I didn't fit in because I was an African-American young girl who spoke properly and went to a private school, and I loved ballet. The other girls didn't. And I tried really hard to fit in because I wasn't Black enough, because I didn't know all of the nuances of Black culture. having a mother who was a baby boomer, who just, and she every day listened to opera and classical music, but, loved, knew all of the old school music and soul and John Brown and all of that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, I didn't grow up knowing R&B the way I should. And so I was an outcast, and I got told, well, you should just go to a white school. And that, along with my talent, was the catalyst of why I left. So that's a story for another day. But after leaving the Davis Center, I went to Washington School of Ballet. And that's where I stayed for 6 years before I went to college. And at college, I went to the State University of New York, SUNY Purchase in upstate New York, majoring in dance. So I was in the Conservatory of Dance there. And I got my BFA in dance performance. After my BFA, I did what literally every college dance graduate does, which is you move to New York. I don't know why I decided to do that, because I just felt like there wasn't any, New York is so oversaturated. But I moved to New York, and like every other person there, didn't end up doing anything related to my field. I was just trying to survive, just living life. But I worked at a place called the Little Gym, which was one of the first places where I actually learned how to teach. Now, the Little Gym, not only they taught dance class, but they also taught gymnastics. Like, that was the majority, was gymnastics. I didn't know a lot about gymnastics, but what I will credit the Little Gym for was they had a set curriculum. Okay. And not only that, every Friday we would have to have training about how to teach that set curriculum. And I think that was really helpful in just seeing how you organize things, how you start, how to introduce a certain move to kids, and then how to advance that move. So, that was very informative. I worked as a nanny for a year. Yeah.
Did not know that.
2 kids under the age of 2. Yep. Lovely family. They became second family. Loved them to death. And then I was about coming up on the second, 2.5 or into my 3rd year there. I was kind of getting restless and saying, all right, what did I go to college for? What was the purpose of this? Because it wasn't to be a nanny, and I was starting to feel that stress and anxiety of I'm not living to my fullest potential, because you feel like the world is passing you by and you're stuck. And so I made this decision. I decided to work the front desk at a place called Brooklyn Ballet as kind of a way to get my foot in the door. And I then also decided to just start some applications to schools and things like that. And lo and behold, I got an offer to teach at Sidwell Friends School here in DC. And of course I accepted. It was a dance teaching position. On top of which, that same year, I was also offered a summertime, position and a substitute teaching position at City Dance School and Conservatory. And so that's kind of just how it took on a life of its own. One teacher quit at City Dance, and I went in halfway through the year, did an amazing job. And so the next year they said, hey, instead of being a sub and a half teacher, teach these 5 classes, and then from 5 classes, it went to teach 12, costume mistress, rehearsal assistant. On top of that, it then went to, oh, you're doing this and you need conservatory dancers here. And so, you kind of you work your way up and you get to a point where you're really contributing. And the same at Sidwell, I went in there having no idea, what the program was like, and you see it and you make some small tweaks. And then for 9 years now, it's been, you create a program that has sustained itself through the years. So that's currently what I do now. That's kind of how I got there.
Oh, that is an amazing journey. There are quite a few things on there that I did not know, and I've known you for a couple years now.
Yeah, yep.
So, now the crux of the conversation. How do you define dance education? So, based on my experiences, a little backstory too is I've had the pleasure of being at Sidwell. Is a school that's more academically focused, but City Dance is obviously like a conservatory. So being at Sidwell, the kids there who are part of the dance program, they don't have any desire to be a dancer, but
the things that dance education provides for them, it creates a positive balance in their life. Whereas kids at City Dance, they don't have a desire. They have a desire to either want to go to college for dance or to pursue it professionally, and some don't, but they still want that intense pre-professional training. And so having that balance helped me kind of understand that in many ways, dance education is what an educator makes it based on the needs of the student. And that's kind of where I've been for a while. Kids at Sidwell are, a lot of those kids are, working to identify themselves, identify their sexuality, may not feel like they have a place within other realms in athletics, in the athletic department. And so in many ways, they found not only a safe haven within the dance program, but they also found a way to express themselves through art. And it's a place where they can de-stress, they can learn something, and they can feel like dance is providing them, like I said, with a platform that in which they can use for people to get a chance to know them and to see them. And, then at City Dance, dance provides, along with the physical opportunities, experiences, discipline. So I feel like dance education to me is so many things that it's hard to define. I think as dance educators, you have to see based on the students that you have and what your goal is with those students. That will help you define what it needs to be for them. And you also have to make sure that falls in line with what you want it to be or how you want to approach it for yourself. I have known from the get-go that, I want to work with students who want to become professionals. So dance education for me is about getting them in a place where they have a strong dance technique. They have respect and discipline for the art form by knowing how to properly take a dance class, coming in prepared, respect for the teachers, what to do, when to do it, old school, right? Because we're in a different society now where a lot of the times old school discipline is seen as abuse, right? And I at the same time, I think one of the most important things that dance education means to me personally is for all kids, no matter what kind of dance you're doing, is teaching them about the importance of failure. Yes. Failure to me is one of the most positive things that can happen in your life. And I feel like it's gotten a bad rep, and it has turned, a generation of kids into participation trophy children. And I hate it. And I think dance is so great at that because the only way that you learn how to succeed at dance is by failing to do certain moves multiple times. And finding the courage to look at yourself and say, okay, now what is it that I'm not doing correctly? And then what do I have to change to then execute the step? And that is failure. And right, because you're not going to get it. And then you're learning that, it's actually helping me to be better. It's causing me to get stronger, to have dedication, and to approach things, in a way where I don't give up. And yeah. So that's kind of what I would say the general thing is that as an educator, your job is to educate students. And I think you have to see how dance can do that for the types of students that you need and what it is that they want to get out of learning how to dance.
Yes. And something that you said that I kind of want you to elaborate a little bit more on, because I completely agree with this part, is that idea of not only are you making sure that you're taking into consideration what the students need, but also knowing what it is that you want and how you see things. And so this idea of being clear on where you stand in the world of dance, because we can't do it all.
Correct.
Like, we can't know every single part there is to know, but the
Correct.
part that you do know
is right. I think one of the things that I had to learn myself, especially being at two different types of schools, was one school where dance wasn't the catalyst of their life. I had to sometimes take a step back and be like, okay, I can't villainize them for this. They're not bad kids. You know, that is not what dance meant to me, but it is what it means to me. And eventually it will be what I want it to. That is my goal when I'm teaching children. But I had to remember, but that's not their goal. And so then I had to kind of make the decision and say, then you need to find that balance. Like if this, you know, if where you're working is not that goal, then you may need to go somewhere else where it is that goal for the students. That's one of the things that I have sometimes found that we as educators can sometimes villainize children for in some ways. You know, not every kid likes math and not every kid likes science, and unfortunately that means then that they're not going to be the best that they can be when they're in an environment that isn't, you know, exciting or stimulating them in such a way that other things do. And so you also then have to find, in my opinion, not only patience, but being part of an educator means that you have to. Dance is so diverse and flexible that you have to find ways that it can relate to those types of kids. Yes. And that is, I think, one of the most important things. It's a bit of a sacrifice. Which I'll be honest about. You know, when you do that, because you are inherently doing what is best for the children, you are then giving up a part of yourself in the sense that you cannot pass on that passion and that drive and dedication to those kids the way you would have wanted to. But, you know, it's like saying... And I've even had kids at City Dance who say, no, I love dance and I come and I'm dedicated, but I don't want to go to college for it. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, you sure?
I'm like, wait, then what are you doing? You know, and I think for me, that was one of the things is that I had to say to myself, you know, dance is not going to do what you think it should be doing for every student, and that's okay. Yeah. You know, and when I started to then approach it from that kind of aspect, then I would see, then the kids were no longer just bad, awful kids who were lazy. It was more like, they just don't, this isn't their thing, but they're still good kids. But then you'd also have to have a conversation with them and say, okay, look, dance may not be your thing, but I still expect you to put forth that same effort that you do with other things that you like. Yes. And then I also had to say to them, if you feel like you can't do that, then this is not the place for you. Because that, you know, that was the other thing. That was like that balancing act of, it's okay if it's not your thing. And if that means that I as a teacher have to approach it differently to get you to see how it can relate, that is my responsibility as an educator. Your responsibility is to still put forth the same amount of effort that you would for anything else. Because if not, then I'm not setting you up in life to be the best person you can be. I'm setting you up in life to get rejected. Because, and especially, you know, and with kids, I have to remind them, you know, I'm like, there are 50 million other kids out there who want that job that says, you know what, I may hate this, but they're going to pay me how much? Now I'm about to show them that I can do any and everything needed to do to get that paycheck. And then you have to ask yourself, was it really so important to say, okay, but this isn't what I'm passionate about, therefore I don't feel like trying. You know, and I think, I lost my train of thought. But that's but like you keep going, you can't stop.
No, but I think what you're saying is very important in the sense that not only are you teaching them a skill set, you're teaching them how to persevere through something that they may not really enjoy doing. There's been many a class that I was like, yo, I don't want to be in here, but I have to finish this in order to get to what it is that I want.
Exactly.
And so I have to push through. Yes. And that was honestly a lesson I learned in the arts.
Right.
Is that, you know, I was the laziest musician. Wow. Like, I'm still to this day surprised I was any type of successful because I wouldn't practice. Right. Like, I would go through the song. Yeah. But once I was like, yeah, I know it, then I was like, yeah, we're good here.
Right.
And I never practiced to the point of it being like, oh, this is perfect. I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I got it.
Yeah.
But then when things started getting a little harder and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. So I'm like, I don't want to.
That's what I tell them too. I say, you think that the things that you're passionate about aren't gonna have areas that you don't like?
Because they are.
They are. And if you can't push through, then you're not going to be able to do anything. I said, if you can push through on something you don't like, then the areas with the things that you don't like are, within that area that you're so passionate about will be easy.
Yes.
But if you can't even push through, then you're not going to succeed in it. Then you're going to end up hating everything.
Yes. That is true. And that literally happened with me with music. Mm-hmm. That I was like, ooh. And I was like, I can stop doing this. Mm-hmm. And it was something I've been doing my entire life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can stop.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, I don't play instruments the way I used to. That I'm like, I can still read music.
Right.
And like my 2/3 of my kids are musicians.
Right.
And so I'm like, the skill is still there. But that love and that passion got completely murdered.
Yeah. But
with dance, it was almost like once I learned that lesson, I was like, okay, well, let's not have a repeat. Like, let's not do that one again.
Right.
So I get to the thing, and like, I'll cry, I'll cuss. Mm-hmm. I will have moments where I'm like, I can't do this, I'm over it. But then I'll go back and say, okay, now what was it that I had to do?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It was this section of the choreography that I wasn't getting.
Right.
Okay, let's just go through it. Okay, do I need to call someone in? All right, can you go through this with me? You don't even have to say anything. Just do that section.
Exactly.
Let me look at it.
Exactly.
Okay, let me try it again. If I need to go by myself somewhere, go work it out. Do it again.
Yeah.
And do I enjoy that process? Not at all. But that learning how to be able to push through has helped not only to maintain my love for it, but it also helps me when I'm instructing to really kind of help them understand that I do see it from your angle. Like, I understand. Exactly. Like, I get it.
Exactly.
Like, dude, I don't like it either. Perfect example. Whenever I'm teaching pirouettes, I'm not a turner. Child. I could do a whole piece with 0 turns and be happy with my life. I'm good off of it. So when I'm teaching it and everyone's frustrated because spotting is one of the most difficult things to teach someone to do.
Yes.
Because it's one of those things that is so easy conceptually that it's hard.
Yes.
And so I always tell them, like, okay, I get it. I understand. I hated doing it too. I still hate doing it. I can give you a clean double. Past the clean double, that means I gotta work. I'm gonna turn my nose up. But if it's what's required, then I'm gonna do it. But you have to be able to take that step back and say, okay, this is what's needed.
Yes.
And I know I want to be on the other side.
Exactly.
Okay, let me get through this.
And I think that's the other issue too with the generation that we have. Even starting with my generation, mm-hmm. Dance is old school. And even though it has gone through the years, as we've progressed to become more technologically advanced, the basis for dance hasn't changed. Mm. It requires patience. It requires years and years of training. It's not an app that can just...
Yes.
And I think that's why so many kids... give up on it so easily, because it's like, well, but I've tried and it's just not happening. Mm-hmm. I said, well, how long did you try for? 2 classes? Okay, then.
Like, baby, no.
Baby, no. That's why you don't, right? And I think, there's also, and I will say too, there's also pressure from your parents. You gotta be great at this, you gotta get this right, and you gotta hurry up and do it because we got applications in college and this and that and this and that and this and that. And I get it, but at the same time, it's that thing that you just talked about. You got to be mature enough to like step back. It's not going to happen this class. Shake it off. What do I need to do? Maybe I need to go back to the bar and do that god awful thing where you balance for a long time. Right. And then say, come back another class and it still might happen. And I'm just going to keep balancing and hate it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then maybe one day, but that's that discipline that just, sadly, like, to me, the thing that scares me the most is vanishing among kids. Yeah. So I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yes.
Story for another day.
Look.
Different story for another day. Yeah.
Okay, so what are some things that you wish you knew before you became an educator?
In general, like, or about?
I would say, in general, because I think it all ends up tying together and impacting how you educate students.
I wish I knew that being I never became a professional dancer. I just deep down, it wasn't something that I wanted to do, but that all the years I spent training does not actually train you to be a good teacher. Girl. One of
say it again.
All the years I spent training does not train you to be a good teacher. One of the things that I struggle with the most is that there's no formal training. Where do you start pliés from? What's the first thing you should do? What makes up a modern class? What are the it's not like English or math in which by grade 2 the kids need to know this. And I think for me, and there's no real set encyclopedia because there's so many different styles of dance. And I think for me, that was the one thing that I wish I knew. I didn't plan to become an educator. So maybe if I had, I would have approached my education differently. But I wish there was more of a, the way ABT has its set training model. Yes. I wish there was more of that amongst dance schools and amongst dance colleges, in which you have a set basis for how to teach. Mm-hmm. There's no book on how to teach. Like my first year at City Dance, when I had to teach 5 classes, I was so scared. I took another friend, offered me kindly, well, she's my boss and my friend, a notebook that listed everything she'd learned, everything she taught. And that's how I started. I took her notebook, I wrote down her lesson plans, and that's where I started from. That was to me, I was like, what is the formal training to be a dance teacher? You know? I don't know. Even a ballet teacher, like ballet and jazz are my strongest suits because they are so closely connected. Modern, I'm a bit more like, But even then, it's like, what is the formal training? And it's like teaching Horton. I know the basics of Horton, stacking and parallel and this and that and arms, but I have no idea how to teach. Like, what exercise do you start with? What do you finish with? How do you progress each one? Like that kind of. I don't know how they do it. I'm in awe of these teachers who've been around for 50 years, who started out as professionals, and I'm like, where do you all learn how to teach? Where? It's like, did I not pay attention enough when I was taking class at Purchase?
But they did it when you went to the bathroom.
That must have been what it was.
You stepped out and they were like, we're going to cover this real quick.
Exactly, because like as a student, you're not focused on what they're teaching you. You're focused on what they're teaching you, not how they're teaching it to you. I was trying to get my extension right and my turns and my balance and all of this. And then come 4 years later, 5 years later, I'm about to be a teacher. I'm like, oh crap! What were the exercises that were actually taught to me? So that I think is the thing that is the most. I wish I knew, because I think then I would have more confidence on myself going into classes. There have been some classes where I have literally looking at the kids. I'm like, why can't we get this step? And then I take a step back and I'm like, holy shit, I was teaching it wrong. Yeah. Not knowing that that's not the way that you should teach them how to, execute it. So yeah, I think that would be.
And I can say from the perspective of, because my BFA is dance education, it was interesting in the sense that I was maybe taught how to teach. Maybe, but my advisor also really just loved creative movement and teaching the babies, kindergarten with scars and just let them be free. And I was like, sis, first of all, I'm not trying to teach the little kids. I'm trying to teach high school. I don't care for the small ones. it is what to this day.
And let's also be clear, the parents, because I have seen a doctor who was a dance teacher for our creative movement class, the parents were about ready to eviscerate her because they were like, why aren't they at the bar? Why aren't they doing plies and tendus?
Child, free for all. Free for all. And I'm like, I'm going to need, like, my baby in here. I'm going to need my baby to be learning something.
She's like, I don't care how happy she is. I'm not paying this money.
I'm
not paying this money for her to run around and feel free. Like,
so you can run around in the yard. Like, now's not the time.
So I feel you.
So there were, going like later past undergrad, there were books that gave, and this is like more with, I would say within the past 5-7 years, that I've started seeing texts that existed that at least give, I'm pretty sure there's like at least one or two up on this shelf over here.
I will be borrowing that from you.
I got you, sis.
Thank you.
But none of these books that I found on my own were a part of any education process of mine. I'm like, why wouldn't you tell me this?
Right.
In fact, classes I'm taking now, like I have an independent study project this year. Girl, I need to work on that. It's all right. I'm going to get it together. But just the little bit of research I was doing, I came across some information that I was like, I've heard this before, but they never told me where it came from. And I'm like, you know, you could have just told me that so-and-so said this. Right. They've done this research. Right. This has been proven to work. Exactly. Or this is like one method you could use, or you could try this. Exactly. And it was just like, no, here, do this. And I'm like, give me something, because that one way of doing, first of all, let me tell you who I wasn't going to just show up running around with some scars with. The high school where I had to do my like practice and teaching. What?
And it's especially shocking to me, like I said, if we are supposed to be teaching them Horton or Dunham or even Cunningham, which I learned in college, I'm like, okay, so how do you start to teach them coccyx balance? What are the preparatory,
Because child, I just be like, you're here.
And this is what it should look like. Find it.
Find this place.
Right.
Find it.
And it's, whereas like what I was talking about with ABT, you start in that pre-beginner and it's put your feet between a beanbag and try to keep the beanbag between your feet as you go up on your toes. Oh, well, that makes sense. You're teaching them how to squeeze and use their muscles to get up and to elevate. There ain't none of that in modern. Ain't none of that. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm all for the fighting the system.
Right. And I
but
get it.
At the same time, there are very clear ways that you want this to be done. So how? Like for someone who, because for some people teaching comes naturally.
Exactly.
And like while they're learning it, they're also paying attention to how it's being taught. But that's not the case for everyone.
This is not the case for everyone. And I think that's also like me being that type of person. I need a set. I love organization for my classes. We can do warm up, tendus and dégagés, grand battements, triplets across the floor, this and that. And then, so I hate when it's just like, all right, where do I start? And that is, so I think the biggest answer to that question, like what I wish I had known, was that there is not going to be somebody there to tell you where to start. Unless you're at Martha Graham's school and you're learning Graham, in which it's a specialized style of dance. Obviously, then and you start there, you're gonna know. But like even then, it's like, where do I start? That's the thing I wish I knew that you don't know, and you will never know. I will never tell you. Yeah.
But I will say, like this part reminds me of something. Okay, so first of all, it was a teacher. Either the teacher said it in the room or one of the students said it, with the teacher sitting right there and the teacher's like co-signing it. And it was wild. That I hate it because this I believe I've been told that the quote gets used out of context. Okay. But the one where they say those who can do and those who can't teach.
Yes.
So it's like, well, first of all, if I can't do it, should I be teaching it? That seems dumb. Yes. I'm like, I don't understand.
Yes.
And so I believe, I would have to check this, but that it was the context it was supposed to be used in is that, okay, so when you can no longer physically do, then that's when people transition. And so that's the can't.
Right.
But the way it was set, and I remember the studio I was sitting in at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina. And I'm sitting here like, because the argument was, it was myself and at least one other dance education major signing up for an advanced level technique class.
Okay.
And they're like, but you don't need it. You're going into education. And I'm like, that's poor math. And I'm not the best at math. That's not good math.
I've just been like, okay.
So when I tell you, I was confused. I'm like, but if my job as educator is to educate, should I not get as much information as possible?
Within my own actual muscular, physical, limb-like structure?
But let me tell you, me and I'm actually trying to get my friend Nick on here. We actually dropped the course because we were like, all right, fine, cool, bye, and put on our own show. Child, there was so much pushback.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was crazy.
That to me is, I can't even understand that. Like, that was...
And that's where we were. Like,
right.
We could not understand,
just
like,
you
it
don't
doesn't
want me
make
to take
sense.
this advanced class because you're saying, well, you don't need it, you're going to teach. And that to me is actually, as an educator, has been one of my strongest suits. That I can say to kids, no, I was never a professional. But I got my BFA in dance, which means I was taking 3 to 4 classes a day on top of rehearsals and learning technique about my butt. So I know how to execute the step.
Yes.
I chose not to get paid for it. But I know what I'm doing.
Yes. And there's a misconception, I feel, that I don't know how it happens. I don't know how we get there.
Yeah.
But that if you haven't had that professional career and you haven't, like, you're not one of these big names that, oh, well, you don't really know what you're talking about.
I hate that. I mean, it's like I said, you're right. I have never been in a professional company and I have never done a dance show where I've gotten paid for it. But I have trained the same way they have.
Yes.
You know, that's like saying, look at football coaches in the NFL. Some of them have actually never played football.
So you're going to say that they don't know what they're doing?
Okay.
Because I don't hear you saying that.
Exactly what they're doing.
I don't hear anyone saying that they don't know what they're doing. Well, okay,
right.
Some people be talking they trash.
Or some of them, but you know, some of the best coaches never made it a big career as a football player. They were like on the practice squad. Or they were like cut after every single preseason.
But they still had all that same training. You know what
getting cut from every single preseason means? You went and got that training.
You sure did. And like that, it drives me crazy. That is one thing.
Yeah.
That
and how many professionals have you seen that can't teach to save
child?
their lives?
Like, and that's why I needed you to say it again.
Cannot teach to save their life. I had to one day step in and watch homegirl get saved by my boss. She's a dancer with the Washington Ballet. She couldn't make a ballet dance for a group of girls for our end of the year show to save Jesus Christ up off the cross. Okay. The kids were looking at... I had to run her dance
I had that image in my head like, oh, my Lord.
And the kids were looking at me just like... they didn't say it, but they were like, Miss Marie, help us.
Because it's a thing.
It's a thing.
And, it is amazing to me that so many are willing to overlook that. And I'm like, just because I haven't performed with a professional company doesn't mean I don't have the education. Like, in fact, the fact that I actually have a degree in education should inform you at least a little bit.
Right.
That at minimum, I can teach.
And you would think that people would comprehend. If I've had the education in dance education, that means that I've taken classes and that I've
it's like they don't put them together. And I'm just like, but the degree is in dance education. Like, I don't understand how you don't understand. But now we're here. Now we're here, and we're trying to figure this out.
I didn't get my master's in the philosophy of dance. Like, we went.
Like, it's in dance. That's what it is.
Right. You know what? Like I keep, sometimes people look at me and I'm like, yeah, no, I went to SUNY Purchase. I was in the conservatory. I've done like 32 nutcrackers. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I taken point and ballet and Graham and Cunningham, like all of those classes. Do you realize I needed like 32 credits, which means you had to put
like I've worked.
I've
done what I was supposed to do.
But now, do I actually know how to actually like execute that from the beginning into an advanced level? No, that is But again,
but clearly, that is the same situation for some of these other folks. But since I can say that I've seen your name on, this billboard, or I know I can recognize this company's name on your resume, by default, oh yeah, you can teach this class. Like, no baby, that just means they can execute it. Now, there are some who are great teachers. So that's not to say that is not the case.
No.
But the assumption that when you don't have that performance background, that somehow that means you won't be as quality an educator, that is problematic.
And like what you said too, like when you go to get your degree in dance education and you're not actually given the opportunity to educate your own body in the actual field with which you want to teach, makes no sense to me. None whatsoever.
It did not then. It doesn't make sense to me now. I don't think it will ever make sense.
And I think what you also hit on a point. It's like, and you know what? I'll say even as a young student, I was a victim of this, in which I associated the quality of this teacher that we were going to have with whether or not they were a professional.
Yeah.
And that just is
Like it happens in a lot of places.
It does.
It happens in the music world too.
Absolutely.
I remember that being a thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just dance.
Exactly.
But it is a problem.
It is
across
a problem
the board.
across the board.
And because I know I'm kidnapping you at some point during this, and I don't want to make you late for your other engagements. But I definitely wanted to touch on the topic that you brought up to me, dealing with the multiplicity of defining dance education and the impact that those variations in defining can have on educators and their careers.
It's funny, I think, actually, that like we've talked on that. Apart, a lot of that being because in so many ways dance is about art, and I think there's dueling things here that kind of fight against each other. Freedom to express yourself through art sometimes then creates the argument that then there's no real formal anything about art. And I think that is where you kind of butt heads. Even when I was in college, we took improvisation. So like improv was an actual class, but at the same time, we would then sometimes sit and argue with the teacher. He's like, well, does dance actually have technique? What is technique? And it's so valid, and I think that's the other thing. Like, there's dance in and of itself is so diverse into what it can be defined as, that sometimes that creates some headbutting.
Yes.
And I think that, to me, is where I have found the biggest struggle. It's like maybe the reason why there isn't such formal how do you begin from A to Z is because it's not seen as something that's not how it works. But that in many ways, for many forms of dance, is how it's developed itself. And so I think that's the hard part, is that if we want to make it like you and I are trying to, a career in which people become dance educators and they get their degree in this, then you have to make sure in which you can educate that person. There's got to be a concrete, and there isn't always, and that makes it difficult. so difficult. I think the other thing that makes it difficult is, and this is probably a topic for another day, is the social and the racial stereotypes that automatically get attached to you. So when I was in New York City at Brooklyn Ballet, I wanted to be a part of their festival, and it was where you would, present a piece and the piece would get, the choreographer's festival.
Mm-hmm.
I walked up to the owner of Brooklyn Ballet, the artistic director, and I said, I'm really interested in this, and what is this about, and when is the application, and this and that. She's like, oh, well, this is for ballet. This isn't a modern dance festival. I said, I know.
Okay.
I was like, okay. I said, yes. That's why I'm really interested in it. I said, ballet is my thing. That is what I do. She's like, oh, well. And so I was just taken aback by okay. So long story short, I get into the festival. Mm-hmm. I present a ballet solo. We sit down and we have a Q&A. And she actually, and I brought it up, I brought up how everybody automatically associates me as a contemporary modern dancer. Mm-hmm. No one ever takes it. And she said, and she came out and she said, I have to apologize to her because I did that. And I was like, that was really big of her.
It was.
As a white woman to sit in front of your own peers, at your own company, your own festival, and to say, I need to apologize for that. It was a huge... But I think that is one of the biggest problems that we have is dance and the art form has become another thing that we have socially planted racial stereotypes on.
Yes, and I think going back to the use of that word multiplicity and really everyone just needs to understand that there's more than one side.
Yes.
And not to invalidate someone's experience, but someone else had a different experience. And both of those things can happen.
Valid. Yes.
Like, and a quote that I've heard many times over, one of my favorite podcasters uses it all the time. I'm not going to name drop right now because I'm not going to be that type of fan. But more than one thing can be true. And there seems to be this mentality that, nope, this is it.
This is
the truth.
Which is so ironic because we're just talking about the multiplicity of dance, and yet we get these stereotypes get put on us, and then the audacity that you have to want to go against that.
To go, ooh, child.
Like I when I was at Washington School of Ballet, I had one of the head of the school there for a few years tell my mother that she thought I should only be a modern dancer because I looked to be having so much more fun and it came so much more naturally to me than ballet. On top of which I was, and I just... Some other things were said too. She said, God, I'm probably going to, I shouldn't probably say this because the person, is who that person is and I don't want to create drama. So I'm not going to name the name. But I have been told that they were shocked that I had such good feet because most black people are flat-footed.
Oh, all right.
And yet I have, and granted, I got some bomb-ass feet.
Yeah, you do.
I've got
your feet
some
are gorgeous.
Nice arches, okay?
You do.
But and I was said, oh, what? That's not true. That's just not true.
I'm like, how many black people do you know?
Okay.
This is where we're going.
That is not
I just feel like that's not really based in fact.
Right. And so I think part of the reasons that I spent so many years at Washington, becoming a bunhead, was to prove to them that I could.
Yeah.
You lit that fire of... And then I said to myself, well, why shouldn't I be able to?
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
We're going to have to go more in depth on that one. Because that has been something, and even when teaching students of color, and it doesn't matter, they could be black, Latino, Native American, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That as soon as you step in, there are some who immediately have put you in this one box, and it has nothing to do with anything besides what they think your people can do.
Yeah. Without realizing, and partly just ballet in general. Mm-hmm. You do have to have a certain body type to do ballet. You do. I had long legs, great feet. I didn't have a torso to save my life. Like, I just don't have a torso. My arabesque struggle. Do you know what I mean? It's just physically, you got to have a long enough torso to bend into that. It's just the way it is. But to say that Black people don't have that is actually, like, that is to me where it has turned into, is that only European body types are the type of body types capable of doing ballet. Couldn't be farther from the truth.
True.
And that's where we've gotten. That to me is where it is that is so just wrong.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly.
So wrong.
So before I let you go,
okay,
I have the first ever ultimate dance trio question for you. Okay. It's okay. You can do this.
I can do it.
You got this. So my question for you.
I'm going to fail.
No, you're not. You're not going to fail. It's okay. You're not being graded. Maybe judged, but not graded. Okay. So if you could teach 3 dance forms that you don't currently teach, what would they be and why?
Hip hop. The intricacies and the speed with which people do gestures is, to me, just so amazing. The way in which you can contort your body and move and do that to the rhythm of the beat is just amazing. That is something that I would love to be able to teach. Based on my experience and seeing how modern has evolved, I wish I had learned stronger contemporary partnering and contemporary acrobatics, because that is a thing now. So that's something that I could teach. I'm looking to learn more about. And then one more form of dance, you said? Oh, gosh. Ballroom. Ooh. I love ballroom dance. And I love ballroom dance. But, like, authentic. We talking, like, Haitian, Dominican, Cuban. Yes. Not, Eastern European. Nothing wrong with that. There's like, nothing wrong with that. No shade. No shade. But I like the flavor that comes with. You know? Like, I would love to learn that style. Not the style where you're in a competition and you can only you have to do certain things. No, I want to be able to, like really get into it.
Feel it.
Yes. Yeah. So those would be the ones.
All right. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Do you have any social media platforms that you want to share with the audience for them to follow you or anything to promote?
So speaking of promotions, we, you and I are participating in a show that is coming up February 29th, Saturday, February 29th. Our show is titled Behind the Mask, Beneath the Surface. It is being presented at the Atlas Performing Arts Center in Washington, D.C. in the Springer Theater. Like I said, Saturday, February 29th at 8:30 p.m. You can go on their Facebook page, and we are listed under the events. We also have a Facebook page. Just look up Behind the Mask, Beneath the Surface. I'm very excited about it. It's 4 women who are coming together. We've always been talking about this diversity, and it's 4 different approaches to dance and to art and to choreography come together to blend into one awesome show. So I would say go on the Facebook account, go on Facebook and look up Behind the Mask, Beneath the Surface, and you will see, the page should pop up. Atlas Performing Arts Center will have more information about the show as well.
And so definitely for all of you in the DMV area, really you
Tickets
should try
are
to make
$20.
$20. And did we have a code?
We will have a discount code coming out soon. As soon as I get it, I will.
So make sure that you're staying up to date on our Facebook page and staying up to date with the Atlas's information page also pertaining to Intersections 2020.
2020. Yep.
We are really excited about this. This will be for the two of us. It'll be our second time presenting. And Marie is presenting a new work.
A new work. Yes, my piece about... speaking of, it's ironic that it's in February because I'm presenting a piece about Romare Bearden, one of the most famous and important African-American artists of the 20th century. So it's going to be titled, which I may change because she's really good at picking titles. So right now the title is called Through the Eyes of Bearden. See, exactly. Okay. That face right there.
We'll talk offline.
We'll talk about it. Okay, it's not in the program yet, so it's not like set in stone. I may have been promoting it on social media. I don't do titles. So.
Okay, sorry, I got you.
Yeah. I'm just gonna Truly's gonna title the piece, and I'm gonna find out what the title is when I open the program.
It's all right. It's gonna be great. We're gonna make it work.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us here on another episode of Dance Talk Realness. Make sure that you follow us across all social media, the Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, all the things, Apple Podcasts, all the things. Please like, review, subscribe, because we want to make sure that we keep bringing you brand new, fresh content. Make sure you're interacting with all the questions that I post, because I definitely want you all to be a part of the conversation. Looking forward to talking with you soon. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.